Hello. In this video we will examine how students can use ClassWiz to support their understanding of univariate statistics. Turn on ClassWiz and let's set it up. We'll be using statistics mode in this video, so choose this mode with menu and number 6. In this video we will deal with univariate statistics with only one variable, so choose 1 to indicate there's only one variable. We'll use an example of some data consisting of the weight in kilograms of a sample of 12 pumpkins. Here we are. For these data, frequencies are not involved. There's only one pumpkin of each weight. So we need to turn off the frequencies in the setup. Shift and setup and go down to statistics number 3. And the frequency should be turned off with number 2. Now enter each of the data in turn, tapping the equals key after each entry. The data will appear in a list. So I'll put them in now. 1.7, 4, 1. You can see they're going down the list as we go. It's good to do this quickly, but not so quickly that you make mistakes. 1.3, and 3.0. Okay, and after the data are entered, they can be examined and edited, and the statistics can be retrieved through the option menu. So the option menu, let's tap number 2 to see many statistics at once on 3 successive screens. So here we are. We can see the mean is surprisingly large, 5.5. We'll make note of that. We can see the sums of squares, the standard deviations, and going down. N is 12. It's always important to check that the correct number of data have been entered, and there were 12 pumpkin weights. The minimum value is 1.3. That seems to be correct. And on the last page, the maximum is 24. That seems a bit strange. That's why the mean is so large. So we must have made some kind of error. It's always important to check the data in those kinds of ways. So let's go back and look again at the data and see, it's number 3, see where the problems are. It looks like, there's 24. That was supposed to be 2.4, so we'll fix that problem. And underneath we can see 20, which was supposed to be 2.0. That's these two numbers here. So these were errors when the data were entered. You should always examine your data to check that they are correct. So let's check again with option and number 3, option and number 2 to see the data. Now the mean looks a bit more sensible, 2.2 kilograms, and all the pumpkins are around about 2 or so kilograms. Go down, N is 12, that's still correct. We haven't added any more data. The minimum value is 1.3, that's still okay. And now the maximum value is 3, which is the correct number. So always the first thing we need to do is to check our data. Okay, so let's go back again. ClassWiz handles the arithmetic regardless of the size of the data and leaves the students to think about the meanings of the statistics and how to interpret them. A more careful look at the statistics is available in the second option screen. So I go down to the second screen. For example, the min-max statistics provide enough information. We'll tap number 3. You can see there the minimum, the median, the maximum, the first and last quartiles. Let's, for example, look at the median, which is number 3. And the median in this case is 2.25 kilograms, which is about the same as the mean. The median shows you the middle of the data. The variable menu, go down here, number 2. The variable menu provides means, standard deviations and variances. Notice that there's a different symbol used for the population and for the sample. This is for the population, this one's for the sample. In this case, the sample standard deviation, which is sometimes called the unbiased standard deviation, would be the most appropriate measure of variation. So let's look at what that is, number 5. And the sample standard deviation is always a little larger than the population standard deviation, as you can see here by going down again and looking at the number 3, which is the population standard deviation. Sample standard deviation, this one is always a little bit larger than that one. Once the data are stored in the calculator, they can be retrieved and edited with the data command, as we did previously. You can see here. So for example, if a new large pumpkin of 3.7 kilograms is added to the set, scroll to the bottom here and we'll add it in by adding in a new data point, a very large pumpkin, 3.7 kilograms, and tap equals. And if we tap clear and return and look at the statistics again, we'll see that the statistics have now changed. The mean is a little bit larger, and the minimum is 1.3, the maximum is now 3.7. If you change the ClassWiz modes, including selecting statistics mode again, all the data will be lost. So make sure that you only do that if you have finished your analysis. So sometimes data have frequencies associated with them, either because they've been grouped in some way, because they might naturally include frequencies, or because it has been necessary to group them because there are more than 160 observations, which is the most that the ClassWiz will permit. Let's look at an example. Suppose a die is rolled 100 times, and the number of times it lands on various faces is recorded here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6, and the frequencies are given underneath. These are the kinds of things that students might do in a classroom. So the use of frequencies is sensible here rather than listing each of the scores one at a time. To analyse these data, firstly we must turn on the frequencies. Remember, we turned them off at the beginning of this video. So to turn on the frequencies, we do shift and we clear the, and then do shift and set up, go down to statistics, which is number 3, and frequency, now we want to turn it on. As soon as you do this, the previous data are lost. And if we go down now to data, you can see there are no data there. We got rid of the previous data, so don't do that unless you really want to change. And we can see here the opportunity to put the data in. Let's put them in now. 1, 2, 3. These are the possible dice rolls, 4, 5 and 6. And move across with the cursor. Notice the frequencies start off originally being 1 each, but we'll put the appropriate frequencies in as you can see them on the screen. 12, 17, 21, 15, 20. We'll be more careful this time so there are no errors. And number 15. 15 of the last one. And tap clear. Retrieving the data is the same as previously. So option and number 2 will show us the one variable calculations. We can see the mean up here of 3.59 seems about right. But let's go down and check some other things before we get too excited about the data. N is 100. It's not 6, it's 100. It's the sum of all of those frequencies. 12, 29, 50, 65, 85, 100. The minimum is 1, that's correct, and the maximum is 6. So it looks as if all the data have been correctly entered, and the results are about what we might expect from a series of random dice rolls. As well as collecting and analysing their own data in these ways, students might also use these features of ClassWiz to study some properties of statistical measures and some statistical relationships. And to see how that might work, think of a small set of integers, a small data set just to be used for illustrative purposes here. And firstly, what we'll do is to again turn the frequencies off, tap clear, turn off the frequencies because we don't have any frequencies this time, turn them off. And now if we go to the data, option and 3, we can see the data have been cleared again. And now we need to enter our new data, which is just this small artificial data set. Students should usually use ClassWiz with real data, but sometimes it's helpful to have artificial data, as in this case. So here's a small data set of just 5 values. And we'll clear the values there. When we have a look with the one variable calculations, number 2, we can see that the mean is 6. The standard deviation, going down to the next page, is 2.55. And just remember those 2 values. And now we're going to see what happens if you change the data. So we're going to return to the data and change them by adding 2 to each data point. So clear here, return to the data with option and number 3. And we're going to increase each one by 2. So 2 more, I'll just change it to 5. We can do that in our head. 6 and 2 are 8, 8 and 2 are 10, 9 and 2 are 11. So we've increased the data by 2. Let's go back and see the effects of that on the statistics. Option and 2, we can see that the mean has gone up to 8, where previously it was 6. Everything's been increased by 2. So the mean has been increased by 2. But notice the standard deviation has not changed at all. The data are no more spread out than they were previously. We can make other kinds of changes and see the effects of those. So for example, let's go back again, option and 3. And this time we'll multiply each of the original data points by 10. So instead of 3, we'll make it 30. Instead of 4, it'll be 40, and so on. Instead of 6, 60, 8 tens are 80, 60, 8 tens are 80, and 9 tens are 90. So now the data have been changed, transformed in a different way. Each original data point has been multiplied by 10. To see the effects of this, let's check the statistics again, as we've done previously. Option and number 2. And we see the mean now has been multiplied by 10. It was originally 6, now it's 60. What's happened to the standard deviation? The standard deviation has also been multiplied by 10. The data are not just larger, but they are more stretched out. And so students can use these kinds of operations with their ClassWiz to see how statistics are transformed when the data themselves are transformed. For example, the data were changed from metres to centimetres, or from Celsius to Fahrenheit temperatures. Well, that's the end of our adventures with univariate statistics. Students can use ClassWiz to analyse their own univariate data and to study data transformations. You'll find Module 10 of the ClassWiz book contains information on how ClassWiz can be used to deal with various aspects of univariate statistics, including in the book some inferential statistics and the normal probability distribution, which we've not had time to deal with here. As well as detailed explanatory text, which can be copied for students as well as teachers, the module includes some exercises to check efficient ClassWiz use, some examples of activities to suggest educationally valuable things to do, and some guidance for teachers. You can download this book freely from the Casio Worldwide Education website. Happy calculating!